So I'm going to go through a little bit of an introduction to the Enneagram. It's just going to scratch a bit of a surface. Some of you might have a lot of knowledge. Some of you might have none, and it's all good. A couple of you have been in the class. We had a class last year. Last year? Was it already? Oh my goodness. On the Enneagram, and it was delightful. So, what is an Enneagram? I think it's the next slide. Joe? There it is. It is an ancient symbol, system, and process to deepen one's own psychological, social, and spiritual growth. The Enneagram is a system of personality typing that describes patterns of how a person interprets the world, where their internal focus is fixated, and the way a person represses, suppresses, or expresses their emotions. The Enneagram describes 9 personality types and maps each type according to this 9-pointed diagram in that corner there. Sandra Matry, she's a knowledgeable Enneagram teacher. She says, by itself, the Enneagram is simply an archetypal map, and this is something to note. Our philosophical and spiritual orientation has everything to do with how we interpret it. So as we work on the Enneagram, what we bring to it matters. And what we bring to it is not wrong. It is how we operate as human beings. The ideas, next slide. The ideas of the Enneagram come from many sources from thousands of years. It originally started as sacred math, sacred geometry through the works of Pythagoras. There's some very specific meaning to why it's designed that way. I'm not going to go into that today, but you can go on a year-long tangent and explore the mysteries of why is there a triangle, a circle, and a 5-pointed shape. And why is that 5-pointed shape at the very bottom have a gap? There's a lot of meaning behind it. So everything about the symbol is just layered with meaning and direction for us. It's also based on ancient Sufism, mystical Christianity, Jewish Kabbalah, Buddhism, Taoism, Hinduism. Beatrice Chestnut, one of my favorite teachers of the Enneagram, writes that the Enneagram represents a model of wholeness, and you'll see the wholeness. Actually, it's the circle. That reminds us that we're actually a whole. Each of the points of the Enneagram not only describes individual personalities, but also characterizes certain archetypal elements that are universal. So archetype is like a pattern of being. And what's so interesting is we humans fall into several archetypes. And a lot of work has been done on that. Carl Jung was very much about archetypal imagery and how to really understand our shadow self, those parts of the archetype that we don't like and we hide. And then Joseph Campbell, you know, the hero's journey, he wrote a ton about the archetype. So this Enneagram has been influenced by a lot of those thoughts and philosophies. Next slide. The modern Enneagram. I'm actually going to go into this because I find it fascinating. So, once upon a time, there was a Greek-Armenian mystic philosopher named George Gurdjieff. He was born in Russia about 1877. He developed a school of thought called the Fourth Way that embraced methods to raise individual consciousness. He taught from ancient Eastern and Western ideas, and how he did this, he was like Indiana Jones. He traveled in the early 1900s all over the world on his father's diplomatic passport. He was kind of a trickster. He kind of was an interesting, some people think he might have been a type 8, and we'll get into that, what that means, but he kind of made his way into secret societies, sat at the feet of like Sufi mystics, was really open to all of these ideas on spirituality and growth. His school was called the Fourth Way because 3 ways are: person operates out of emotions primarily, person operates out of intellect primarily, or a person operates out of their gut body center. His 4th way was the whole way, mind, body, soul, almost like yoga. He also developed music for dance. He did like a kind of Sufi type dance to connect with a higher source. He was an interesting figure. Some say he was sometimes very hard to be with because he was so direct. He was always looking to push your buttons because he believed that our buttons, when they get pushed, are a representation of something we need to work on. One of his students did a lot of writing on his work, but he was very mysterious about where he found out about the Enneagram. Now, he did not develop that actual system, this system. This system was developed in the 1950s by Oscar Ichazo. Ichazo also was a little mysterious about where he came up with these ideas, but he was a very avid reader and researcher and spiritual seeker. He taught the Enneagram of personalities in Chile. He does not credit Gurdjieff with these ideas, and some of Gurdjieffian people really don't like that. And if you go online, they're really upset that Ichazo didn't mention Gurdjieff, but that's here or there. So Oscar Ichazo drew his concepts further from Aristotle, Plato, not Plato, the Hebrew Kabbalah, and the work of the spiritual desert mothers and fathers of the early century of Christianity. His theory was similar to Gurdjieff, where that the personality was just this fixation and behaved in almost mechanical and unconscious ways, but he also added a little psychology to it as well. Well, one of his students, Claudio Naranjo, was really the one that fully fleshed out the model of the Enneagram that we know today. And in the 1970s, he worked with some major psychologists, one being Fritz Perls, the founder of Gestalt therapy. He furthered the work in the United States, taught at Berkeley, and he also taught at our Loyola University in Chicago to a group of Jesuits. And at the time, it was still all secret. They didn't want to let everybody know about the Enneagram because they really felt people would misuse the information and treat it as sort of a parlor trick. Like, really learn the traits, go to somebody, I can tell you what you are and where you need to go, and they really didn't want it to be used in that way. They definitely didn't want it to be used as we use it today in memes, though I love the memes. I love the videos. I think they're hilarious. So they really tried to keep it secret, but the Jesuits couldn't keep their mouth shut. And one of them, being Don Riso, and his business partner, Russ Hudson, developed the psychological Enneagram that we know also today. And their website is, it's called, what is it called? EnneagramInstitute.com. It's a robust system. They developed a robust testing that you could go on there, test yourself, see what your number is, and then they have a lot of other information and courses that you can take. So why does this matter? Next slide. Okay. Understanding your Enneagram type, your core motivation, enables you to broaden your awareness of possibilities. Utilizing the Enneagram type structure serves as a practice to embody and live out the truth of your essence. This work retrains old and limited ways of being. In Ephesians, it says, "You must give up your old way of life. You must put aside your old self, which gets corrupted by following illusory desires. Your mind must be renewed by a spiritual revolution. I love that. This work is a spiritual revolution. And what do revolutions do? They bring freedom to the oppressed. The Enneagram helps us develop the capacity to see, sit with, and eventually love the most unsavory parts of our personality. That is the work. So the Enneagram shows us I tend to do this by this specific number. I'm a type 7. I tend to not like to feel pain. Nobody likes to feel pain, but I've made a career of it. And so what I've done my entire life is think of better ideas, better options, always planning for something better if I feel sad, anxiety, mad, because I don't like those feelings. So I developed a system of being from the time I was little, probably around by the time I was 7. I had it figured out. I felt bad. I'm going to go off in my head. My head is a happy place. I am so happy on the inside most of the time. I don't sit around and wall around in that, like those sad feelings. Despair, I don't do it. Well, I do it now, and this is why. Because living like that, you have to up the ante on numbing out to the world, and I did. I did drugs, alcohol, I did it all. I binge watched stuff, I threw myself into overworking, I tried to numb myself from those I called awful feelings. And when it hit a wall, because you do end up hitting a wall eventually, I was cracked wide open, and I was left to have, what am I going to do here? So I went to see a therapist. I started a couple of things, and my life started changing. And my 7-ness, this tendency to want to plan away the ickiness of the world, it's still there. But now I love it. You know, I say, hey, you're okay. It's okay to be sad right now. You know, it's okay to sit with your feelings. Let's sit with them I'll give you 5 minutes. And that has really worked for me. And I've learned some of this work through the Enneagram. It shines a light in some ways on our shadow selves. And in the same way, it shines a light on our gifts, too, because some of us are asleep to our gifts. We actually will not be all we can be, because depending on our type, we don't want someone to feel bad. We don't want to outshine somebody else in our life. And so it really helps us to start to look at us in a whole way. So these unsavory parts of us show us right where the place is that we need to grow in. And the Enneagram starts to help us start to create practices. And we get to decide what practices those are. It's whatever works for you. These are just suggestions. And what we start to do is we go, oh, there I go again. Oh my gosh, and I'm criticizing myself on that. And we start to learn an objectivity to what's going on in the head. These thoughts, they keep going. Just like the heart keeps breathing, and just like the heart keeps beating and the breath keeps breathing. This thing is a thought-making machine. You can't turn it off. I mean, I know it feels like it sometimes. I'm going to think about nothing, elephant, what? You know, it's like there's just no way to turn that thing off, because that's what it does. And then the ego, the personality, takes over and says, this is what that means. Well, does it? So this works, you start to go, wait, I'm feeling really hurt right now by what that person just said. Wait, was that directed to me? Well, even if it was, why does it hurt so much? And you start to get around kind of like, oh, I've got an old wound here. I've got a young place in me that hasn't quite grown up yet, that's still being injured. And so this Enneagram work starts to kind of aliven that. So the goal of working through the Enneagram system of recovery is to transform our narrow, dysregulated, working model of personality into higher levels of functioning, expansive, loving humanity. All right, next slide. So the Enneagram is also based on archetypes are stories. 9 different stories. The work of typing oneself is part of this journey. And it's best to allow the different descriptions to just sit with you when you start to hear them. And today, I'm actually going to go through all 9 descriptions. And what we're going to do is really focus on the words and what the words do to us. Does it spark an emotion? Does it cause, sweaty hands? Actually, I get sweaty hands when I talk, by the way. You can't see it. Now I'm calm now, but when I walk up into this arena, I have so much anxiety. I think I always will, because I think anxiety kind of lives with me. But because of these practices, breathing, going, you're okay, I've been able to help my personality get a little more flexible. So the work of the Enneagram starts with typing oneself. You got to figure out which number you are so you can start. Finding out that number can sometimes be a complex thing. There are many tests out there. The thing with these tests are that we can lie to ourselves. I can read things and go, I really want to be that, so I'm going to pick that. And I'm not saying you guys lie to yourself. I'm sure you don't. I do, but I'm sure you don't. And so when we take these tests, it kind of gives us an idea of what we're looking at. And it's almost like it's giving you a bit of a target to throw something at, like an arrow at. But really, it's a great beginning for some it's not. Some people get very fixated on test results. And if you start to feel fixated, let it go. And maybe just start to read descriptions. Maybe start to watch videos. There's several videos out there that have paneling, where Beatrice Chestnut panels a whole group of 1s, a whole group of 2s, a whole group of 3s. And it's really interesting to kind of watch it, watch their body language, feel their energy, see what they're talking about, and see what resonates with you. I started this work over 10 years ago. Probably for the first 7, I was like, yeah, it's a personality tool, just like the Myers-Briggs, just like the Big 5, all of those. And about 5 years ago, I started really getting into what it really was, because it is a deeper work. And for a while, I typed myself something different. I actually typed myself as a 5 for a full year. But I had a lot going on. I was in my master's program. I was in research mode. I didn't want to see anybody. I was very isolated and hermit-like. So when we take the test or start to look at the descriptions, think about where you are right now, too. And what's really helpful is to think about how you were in your 20s, when you were first starting out as an adult, or even as a child, like 10, 11, 12, adolescence. Maybe start to think about how you were then and think about the words, because some of us have done a ton of work. So we might be on the upper end on some of these numbers, and it may look like a different number. But you don't have to do it alone. There's a lot of people out there that'll help you. We're going to have a course, and I'll talk about that later, but we can talk about it, and if you want help typing, I'm always here. You can always ask me. I will not type people, by the way. Don't ask me to guess your type. That's very mean to me. Because I feel like I would do you no service. Part of it is the work. Typing yourself is actually part of the spiritual work. Okay. Let's see. I think I went through that. Kind of got off my little... So we have the capacity to change our lives. We are able to see how our patterned responses are just that. A pattern of being that was created to keep us safe from harm. This pattern was developed when we were children. When we came out of the womb. Once we were in the womb, all was well. We got food when we wanted it. The temperature was consistent. I was never cold. I was always connected to source, 100% connected to source. And then I was birthed. Oh my gosh, that became the work. I had to work. I had to ask for food. I had to ask for comfort and shelter. And I didn't have words at that time. So I had to use my voice, crying, screaming sometimes maybe, and tell my mother or whoever was caring for me, could understand what I needed. Sometimes that didn't go well. Sometimes mom or my caregiver was sick, or maybe she was depressed, or maybe her temperament was so different than mine. Maybe I was a highly sensitive child that even a touch could create me like nervousness or a cry. And temperament is mysterious. We're born, they think we're genetically born with temperaments, but our personality is formed through temperament and environment and DNA. So we started working a program of how does my world work? When I'm 3, when I help mommy and mommy is delighted, I'm mommy's little helper. Oh my gosh, and I will grow up being everybody's little helper because I'll get love through that. Or I'm adorable and I can tap dance and watch me while I do the splits. Everybody claps and I learn, wow, performance. That's where it's at. I'm going to perform theatrical. I had a child in the neighborhood that used to do that, round up all the kids, and we had theater in the front yard. That kid, I'm sure, and I'm thinking of that number, probably a 3, she learned she'll get attention that way and love. Or, oh my gosh, I feel my feelings so deeply. Sometimes I feel drowning in my despair, in my sorrow, and there is something terribly wrong with me. So I will create beauty. I will find beauty. I will keep looking for the ideal. Do you hear it? Like we really figure out how we need to be in the world, and then we get to be adults. And it creates a lot of problems for us because we forgot that we never lost our source. We forgot that we were never disconnected from source. We're always connected to source, and it's always there for us. All right, next slide. So this is the Enneagram. There are 9 types, and as you can see, there's a faint kind of watercolory looking separation in the middle. Those are the 3 centers of intelligence. That top pinkish one, 8, 9, and 1, they are the body gut type. This light pinkish one, that is the heart emotion type. And that blue one, 5, 6, and 7, that is the head thoughts cognitive part. These 9 distinct specializations are nuanced even deeper, and I'm not showing that here, but by subtypes of self-preservation, of a sexual drive that creates this kind of one-on-one energy, and of social connection. And I will be going into that in the upcoming course. So, what I'm gonna do now, how are we doing on time? Oh, we're pretty good. I'm going to describe the 9 different types. And what I want you to do is use mindfulness, observation, and kind of feel the words and see if maybe one of these types resonates with you more than another, if you have some questions about what type you are. So this is from David Daniels' work, and actually I'm using his book in the next class. I really like the way he does stuff. He also is one of the founding teachers from the 1970s and 80s realm. So let's start with, I'm gonna start with the body gut type, and I'm gonna start with type 8. I'm gonna go out of order a little bit. So, type 8, I approach things in an all or nothing way, especially issues that matter to me. I place a lot of value on being strong, honest and dependable. What you see is what you get. I don't trust others until they have proven themselves reliable. I like people to be direct with me, and I know when someone is being devious, lying, or trying to manipulate me. I have a hard time tolerating weakness in people. unless I understand the reasons for their weakness or I see that they're trying to do something about it, I also have a hard time following orders or directions. If I do not respect or agree with the person in authority, I am much better at taking charge myself. I find it difficult not to display my feelings when I'm angry. I'm always ready to stick up for friends or loved ones, especially if I think they are being treated unjustly. I may not win every battle with others, but they'll know I've been there. Okay, type 9 is the center of the triangle. I seem to be able to see all points of view pretty easily. I may even appear indecisive at times because I see advantages and disadvantages on all sides. The ability to see all sides makes me good at helping people resolve their differences. This same ability can sometimes lead me to be more aware of other people's positions, agendas, and personal priorities than of my own. It is not unusual for me to become distracted and then to get off task on the important things I'm trying to do. When that happens, my attention is often diverted to unimportant, trivial tasks. I have a hard time knowing what is really important to me, and I avoid conflict by going along with what others want. People tend to consider me to be easygoing, pleasing, and agreeable. It takes a lot to get to me, to the point of showing my anger directly at someone. I like life to be comfortable, harmonious, and accepting of me. Now we're going to go to 1. I'm trying to embody these people a little bit. I have internal standards for correctness, and I expect myself to live up to those standards. It's easy for me to see what's wrong with things as they are and tend to see how they should be improved. I may come across to some people as overly critical or demanding perfection, but it's hard for me to ignore or accept things that are not done the right way. I pride myself on the fact that I'm responsible for doing something. You can be sure it's done right. I sometimes have feelings of resentment when people don't try to do things properly or when people act irresponsibly or unfairly. Although I usually try to not show it to them openly. For me, it is usually work before pleasure, and I suppress my desires as necessary to get the work done. Now we're going to move into the heart space, emotion space. Type 2. I am sensitive to other people's feelings. I can see what they need even when I don't know them. Sometimes it's frustrating to be so aware of other people's needs, especially their pain or unhappiness, because I'm not able to do as much for them as I'd like to. It's easy for me to give up on myself. I sometimes wish I were better at saying no because I end up putting my more energy into caring for others than caring for myself. It hurts my feelings if people think I'm trying to manipulate or control them, when I'm really trying to understand and help them. I like to be seen as a warm-hearted and good person, but when I'm not taken into account or appreciated, I can become very emotional or demanding. Good relationships mean a great deal to me, and I'm willing to work hard to make them happen. Also in the heart triad is our type 3. Being the best at what I do is a strong motivator for me, and I have received a lot of recognition over the years for my accomplishments. I get a lot done and am successful in almost everything I take on. I identify strongly with what I do because, to a large degree, I think your value is based on what you accomplish and the recognition you get for it. I always have more to do than will fit into the timetable available. So I often set aside feelings and self-reflection in order to get things done. Because there's always something to do, I find it hard to just sit and do nothing. I get impatient with people who don't use my time well. Sometimes I would rather just take over a project someone is completing too slowly. I like to feel and appear on top of any situation. While I like to compete, I'm also a very good team player. Type 4, also in the heart space. I am a sensitive person with really intense feelings. I often feel misunderstood and lonely because I feel different from everyone else. My behavior can appear like drama to others, and I have been criticized for being overly sensitive and over-amplifying my feelings. What is really going on inside is my longing for both emotional connection and a deeply felt experience of relationship. I have difficulty fully appreciating present relationships because of my tendency to want what I don't have and to disdain what I do have. The search of emotional connection has been with me all my life, and the absence of emotional connection has led to melancholy and depression. I sometimes wonder why other people seem to have more than I do. Better relationships and happier lives. I have a refined sense of aesthetics, and I experience a rich world of emotions and meaning. Now we're going to cross the gap from 4 to 5. I've heard it said it's the longest point because it's the longest point between heart and head. Let's start with our beloved type 5s. I would characterize myself as a quiet, analytical person who needs more time alone than most people do. I usually prefer to observe what is going on than to be involved in the middle of it. I don't like people to place too many demands on me or to expect me to know and report what I'm feeling. I'm able to get in touch with my feelings better when I'm alone than with others, and often enjoy experiences I've had more when reliving them than when actually going through with people. I'm almost never bored when alone because I have an active mental life. It is important for me to protect my time and energy, and hence to live a simple, uncomplicated life and to be as self-sufficient as possible. Type 6 in the headspace. I have a vivid imagination, especially when it comes to what might be threatening to safety and security. I can usually spot what could be dangerous or harmful and may experience as much fear as if it were really happening. I either always avoid danger or always challenge it head on. My imagination also leads to my ingenuity and a good, if somewhat offbeat, sense of humor. I would like life to be more certain, but in general, I seem to doubt the people and things around me. I can usually see the shortcomings in the view someone is putting forward. I suppose that, as a consequence, some people may consider me to be very astute. I tend to be suspicious of authority, and I'm not particularly comfortable being seen as authority. Because I can see what is wrong with generally held view of things, I tend to identify with underdog causes. Once I am committed myself to a person and a cause, I am very loyal to it. And my favorite number on the Enneagram, type 7. I am an optimistic person who enjoys coming up with new and interesting things to do. I have a very active mind that quickly moves back and forth between different ideas. I like to get a global picture of how things fit together, and I get excited when I can connect concepts that initially don't appear to be related. I like to work on things that interest me and have a lot of energy devoted to them. I have a hard time sticking with unrewarding and repetitive tasks. I like to be in on the beginning of a project during the planning phase, and then there may be many other interesting options to consider. When I have exhausted my interest in something, it is difficult for me to stay with it because I want to move on to the next thing that has captured my interest. If something gets me down, I prefer to shift my attention to more pleasant ideas. I believe people are entitled to an enjoyable life. My mantra. Thank you. I really enjoyed letting you guys in on a little bit of our Enneagram and